Welcome to the Fifth Trooper podcast.
My next guest is the second sister from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and also has a recurring role on the first season of Party of Five. Please welcome to the podcast, Elizabeth Grullón.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. This is really exciting. We were looking into this, so I was doing some research on Fallen Order and you know your character and all this stuff. And something that really kind of hit me was like how this character has really taken hold of the Star Wars fan base. And it was really interesting. And I wanted to ask you about like how has the reaction been from fans for you?
Yeah, it's been incredible. It's really been insane. I love chatting about this too because you know the game came out in November and the huge amount of response was happening all through December, January, February. But now it's like mid-March, and you know it's not. Well, also we're dealing with like the end of days and the coronavirus. So it's not something that's like at the forefront of my mind necessarily as often as it was, and it's just wonderful to be reminded because the response from the fans. You guys, if any of the fans are listening, people who've like DM'd me, commented, found me on Instagram. You have no idea how much I appreciate you guys. And I look forward to reading those messages. And I've just loved connecting with the fans. But yeah, it seems like a very widespread response of people connecting to the second sister and connecting to my performance. And it's so gratifying. A lot of people have made remarks like saying that they kind of relate to the Inquisitor now for the first time. Or they're seeing that the Inquisitorius are also victims, that it's not just good and evil. It's not that simple. And so that's a really cool, I'm like, ooh, I helped add a layer of humanity into this franchise. Like that is a good feeling.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Star Wars in general has been pushing like these multi-dimensional female characters. And, you know, and I mean, I think Star Wars is better for it and all, but I mean, that's what that character is. So for you, how was it to play? Like, I mean, it just, you know, at first you're like, oh, it's a bad guy. But then as you know, go throughout the game, you're like, oh, wait, there's more to this.
Yes. Yeah. It's a wonderful gift to be able to play a complex female character in any franchise, in any job, on any TV set or movie set. You know, that's just it's a gift. I mean, women are miraculous in their complexity and in the way that they interact with others and what they choose to say or not say and what they choose to act on or not act on. I find women to be deeply interesting and deeply complex. So for so many years to have like really one-dimensional like versions of women in our media, it was just a missed opportunity. And now with this big movement and this big wave that's happening across all media, and I think Star Wars is really at the forefront of that. They've always been pushing complex female characters. A lot of times for interviews like this, people ask me what my favorite character in Star Wars is, and I always say Princess Leia, because I remember as a kid when I was like 7 or 8 years old, seeing Princess Leia and going, "Oh, a woman can hang with the guys, can be tough,
Right,
and can be smart, and can be indispensable." You know, they needed her.
yeah.
And
Well, and also she's not just like we gotta go save this maiden. Like like within the first part of A New Hope, she's like, no, I'm gonna take over now,
yeah,
and I'm gonna get in the chute, right? Like,
yeah, she's very brave and stuff. So yeah, Star Wars I think has always done the right thing and just not missed that opportunity. But yeah, to play the second sister, wow, what a woman. What a complex and wounded and intelligent woman. And it was really incredible because for me it was like I was challenged to unleash more and more aspects of my own complexity, my own intellect, and like challenge myself, because that's what being an actor is, like deeply personal. You know,
Hmm.
you're combining like your body and your heart and your voice and your being, your mind with this piece of writing. And that's what makes it come to life, is the life that the actor brings to it. It's like a kind of magic, kind of alchemy. Um, so it was really
You
cool. Yeah, like the second sister is like not a people pleaser like
right.
Elizabeth is. You know? Second
Do
sister
you
is
do you
not.
find it hard, like leaving? Because it seems like I've heard a lot of actors talk, and it seems like almost every role you're almost cutting yourself open in a different way and displaying a different piece of your inner self. And so is it difficult to do that and to like walk away from that when the job's done?
It is so difficult, Jay. I really cannot front. Like, it is so difficult.
Mhm.
And I think even I have this narrative in my mind that's like, "Oh, acting, it's not hard. You just talk
Yeah.
and listen, like whatever." But it's not, that's not true. It's really, really, really hard. And the more I do it, the more respect I have for especially women. Like, I think of like Nicole Kidman or people who have been doing it for like 20 years in the public eye, and it's a very ugly process if you're doing it right. It's it's a deeply exposing process. So that means vulnerability. And vulnerability is very, very difficult for human beings because our brains are hardwired to protect us from any risk.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Risk is what's interesting to watch from an actor, from a filmmaker or whatever. Like, or even on the field, like when we're watching a great athlete or something, like somebody who's willing to like push to that edge to take that risk, and you have to risk failure, risk looking stupid. And again, there are so many mechanisms in our brains and our thinking minds to keep us from doing that. So every time I get up to work as an actor, I'm pushing past a thick layer of resistance from inside my own brain. It's like,
Right.
"No, you could work at a desk, couldn't you? Like, we don't are we gonna do this again?"
Right.
So it's really hard, but I don't know, I feel like I'm living, which is a good
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, because it's counter to every interaction you have outside of that, right? You're like, okay, I don't know you, you're a stranger, so I'm gonna withhold some information, withhold some of myself until I really get to know you. But then as an actor, you're asked to be like, yeah, remember all that stuff you learned about stranger danger? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put your real self on film now. So good
You're gonna
luck with that.
totally expose all of
Yeah.
your wounds, all of your thoughts, all of your fears in front of 60 people every single day. Because that's the other thing on set. I don't know, maybe a lot of people don't realize this, but there are so many people on set, you know? Like on a TV show, there's like 60 union members all standing around. There's like a very particular time being kept. You know, 30 seconds on set is like hundreds of dollars. So there's so many aspects, and I mean, I still struggle with it. I was just talking to my partner about this yesterday. Like, I get frustrated by how difficult it is. I'm like, really? You've been doing this for so long. Like, when is it going to become easier? And we talked about how a lot of the great actors say the same thing even after they win a bunch of awards and have been doing it for 20 years. It's like that imposter syndrome thing everybody talks about. I don't know if it gets easier because if it's easy, if you're not scared, then you're probably not risking something and you're probably not truly stepping into the unknown. So I
Right, right. Are you giving it your all at that point if you're not scared?
like,
Right.
are you stepping into uncharted territory?
Yeah.
Because if you really were, then wouldn't you be scared?
Right, right, right. And I mean, oh man, I wish I could remember the quote, but there's that quote that basically says, as humans, if we're not uncomfortable, we're not growing, right? Like if you're just comfortable, you're not going anywhere. You're just staying the same. And so I suppose that works. And I think for a lot of us, like acting and Hollywood or wherever the acting is, it's not really Hollywood anymore, right? Like it's everywhere. But like wherever that happens, I think for a lot of us, we just see the end product and we think of it as some like magical realm where all this stuff happens, and we don't really. Sometimes it can get lost that actors and people who are doing entertainment are just humans, right? Like they're just like us. They just have a different job, and so
Yeah,
like trying to think that through is I there's a disconnect there, I think.
for sure. Also, I think the great actors make it look really smooth and easy.
Yeah.
So when we are looking at the finished product, we're like, oh, myself included. I'm like, oh, I could do that. I
Right.
remember one time in college, we were doing scenes and stuff because I went to school and got a degree in acting and did like a conservatory style, like theater based classical text training, which very much served me for the second sister because there's something quite Shakespearean about the way she speaks and carries herself.
Yeah. There really is.
But I remember a teacher pointing that out to us, like, because somebody did great work, and it emboldened me, and I thought, well, I could do that. Let me get up. I want to go. And the teacher mentioned that, like, when you're doing it well, it looks easy, but it really is not. It really is not. I mean, it's a messy, ugly, bumpy, like ungraceful process. At least for me, I don't know. Maybe there are actors out there that are just like gliding into excellence, but I'm not one of them.
Well, and I think I mean really that can like I think that goes for anything. Like for instance for me for the podcast, like when we first started this, I was watching like Joe Rogan podcasts or or listening to that or like these different radio shows, and I was like, "Oh man, I can do that. Like it's just talking, right? I'm just talking about my life and stuff we're doing and games, and it's like it's more complex than that, and then
Right.
you start like realizing, oh no, that looked easy because they're super good at it.
Exactly. Exactly. There's like 15 things that they did in perfect synchronicity to make that look effortless.
Yeah. Yeah, and like and then all the and I mean I think it's the same for you guys, like all the research and thoughts and like one of the questions I wanted to ask you was like all the thinking and the working out what the backstory and the motivations of a character are. Like that seems I think that gets overlooked sometimes where, to go along with this conversation where I think a lot of people think, hey, they just show up, you just showed up and started doing second sister stuff. But really it's more complex, right? Like you had to think about who is she as a person, where's she from, where is she going.
Yeah, another thing I've realized as I've continued to do this work is it's always different. Every character is different, every project is different, every team is different. It's a highly collaborative field of work. So that's another frustrating thing because there's no real sense of like predictability or routine or like it's just so bizarre. But with Second Sister, two things happened. So when I first auditioned, I had no idea what I was auditioning for. I was not. I hadn't received the material. There was a glitch in the email, and the sides didn't attach to the.
Yeah.
So, and I also, it was just a voiceover audition in person. And I get like 10, 15 voiceover auditions a week. So literally, you don't have the bandwidth to treat them like they're precious. They're not precious. They're just whatever. And so it was just another voiceover audition. Couldn't have cared less about it. Showed up, realized that I didn't have the sides. Also realized that in the email, they asked for everyone to be as off book and completely memorized as possible. And I was like there for my appointment time, and I'd never even read them.
Oh man.
And so then I finally got them, and then I let like a few other women auditioning came in and signed in after me. But I was like, "Do you mind going first? I just want to sit for like 10 or 15 minutes with the sides." I was very unapologetic and unashamed about it. I was like, "I just got these."
Yeah.
Like basically, I was like, "I'm just gonna bomb this audition.
Right, right. It's fine. Everything's fine here.
Everything's fine. I'm on fire, and everything's totally fine."
Yeah.
um, But then something happened. I was looking at them over for 10 minutes, doing just that beginning light touch work, thinking, just looking at the structure. Also, it was like monologues. It wasn't like a two-hander
Yeah.
where you're like responding to someone. Those are a lot easier to learn quickly. If someone's like, "I love you," and then your character goes, "I love you too." It's like, "Oh, okay. That'll be easy for me to remember because you're telling me you love me." This
Yeah.
was like a 3-page monologue where no one else speaks.
Right. Well, that's what villains do, right?
Yeah,
Is they monologue.
yeah, they monologue. So, but then this very interesting magic happened where I think partially because I wasn't treating it like it was precious, and I had no expectations on myself. I had no demands on myself to do a good job or book the job. There was none of that like mind stuff that happens. It was just the pure natural interplay of the language and me. And also the writing was phenomenal. So with really phenomenal writing and in a very kind of supple actor, um, this weird thing happens where it can be like a sponge. Like the actor can just like get
Yeah.
it's very weird. So that's what happened. So right away I started to feel her dialect. I was like, "Oh, she's British. I think she's British."
Okay. Yeah.
And they weren't looking for a British dialect at all. Nobody else was doing that. And then I started to feel how she would move. Like I was all of a sudden moving slower, like a cat, or like a snake. And I went in and did it and somehow magically was completely off book for those 3 pages of monologues and made the casting director very uncomfortable, like stared her down at one point,
Perfect.
like took a
Yeah.
really long pause, like a very second sister pause. So yeah, I don't know, like it just it was like a possession.
That's interesting. I've heard actors talk about that before, where they get a character and it's almost like the character takes them over. Do you think inside somewhere that as you were reading this and as you were kind of that maybe that was you somewhere and that kind of like the dots connected and you're like, "Oh, I know this person. I've been her before." Like I've walked in those shoes before.
No, I've never been that before. I've never walked in those shoes before. I've never been that confident and unapologetic, and
Mm.
I mean, maybe when I was 5 years old, I was very confident and unapologetic.
Well, maybe that's who you were tapping into.
Yeah.
Your 5-year-old id. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was more of a feat of the imagination,
Mhm.
and some kind of magic. I do think that that role was my role, and it when I later in the process I read the character breakdown like after I had booked the job and before we went into like shooting. So this is like months and months later. Uh, the the writers gave me a character description. I wonder if I have it right here. I don't think I do. But this thing was so thorough. It described her psyche, the way she walks, the way she moves, the way she fights, her fighting style, her physique, her the physical quality of her body. And as I read it, I was like, my breath was taken away. I was like, this is me.
Hmm.
No wonder I got this job.
Yeah.
This was my job, which is weird because it's the opposite of what my response to the question you just asked me, where it's like, no, I've never been this.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it was a gift for sure.
So kind of going off of the movement and the physique, I think a lot of people, as I was kind of researching and looking into this, like I don't think a lot of people realize that not only did you do the voice, but there was mocap or motion capture involved in this as well, right?
Yes, everyone listening, I did all the motion capture. Every time I read online, like the voiceover, I'm like, well, hold on. I embodied the character for a year on a sound stage in Culver City every day. Like, and the character's made in my likeness. It's a lot more than doing voiceover in the booth. We did some voiceover sessions at Warner Brothers for a couple of months after we finished mocap, and that was wonderful. But it's completely different. Um, but yeah, I had the head mounted camera. If you visit my Instagram or even look online, I'm sure you'll find, photos of us, me and Cameron Monaghan and Tina Ivlev and Deborah Wilson, like um, in the dots on our faces and the spandex suits, the head mounted cameras, and I was wielding a foam lightsaber, and Cameron and I were actually touching lightsabers and fighting, and there were moments where, he would force push me and I would fly back and I was actually flying back onto a crash pad. Like it was very involved.
Let me ask you this. What was it like wielding a lightsaber knowing that you were doing that for Star Wars? That this was not you just playing at home or hanging out with your friends, but this was actually going to be in a Star Wars media.
It was like the first time you ever saw fireworks when you were 5 years old or something,
Hmm.
It was like that. It was like, what is happening? This is the best thing ever. Like, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? Is everybody seeing this? Like, it was like that. And I just took it really seriously. I adore and really love doing very physical work as an actress, like doing stunts and fight training and sword fighting, learning how to hold a gun and any of that kind of stuff. I really enjoy it and I kind of pick it up relatively quickly. So we had a blast with the stunt team. They went crazy with me. Actually, there's a video on my Instagram of some BTS I posted. What was in the beginning of our fight trainings, and they were giving me like more and more complex sequences to keep adding on and learn. And it was. I always describe it as like when you're in school and then the bell rings for recess, like that excitement and sense of release you get from like, I'm going to the playground to play with my friends.
Yeah.
That's how it felt to go to work every day.
So at what point in the process, so for those who may not know, motion capture, that you basically have like blue, green, or black depending on what they're doing with dots on it, so you don't know what the character is really looking like. So at what point in that process were you able to see either playbacks or renderings of your character and kind of matched up with what you were doing on the set?
Not for a long time, maybe not ever. I'm trying to think. Show me.
I've never seen it. No.
I mean, when the game was released,
Right, right.
cutscenes, and before that, no, I don't think I was ever shown like actual. I may have been, but nothing's coming to mind.
Okay.
I was shown uh, art, concept art, and I remember the first time. Oh, my dear friend, our producer Rich Phim, he showed me the concept art for the first time, and it was like, man, I don't know how to describe that feeling. Like this woman, this with her
Yeah.
body, like you can see her body and her small waist and her long legs, and this cool, sinister, very delicate helmet, and then the floor length black cape, like waving in the wind. I think I cried. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Man, so lucky, so blessed.
So in your different roles that you've played, when how I mean, as an actor, we were talking earlier and you're saying, your imagination kind of took over when you were reading through the words. How how well does that match up, like when you're doing mocap on a soundstage and the other people, do you guys all have do you talk with the other actors and kind of have this almost like crowdsourced imagination of what's happening and what you're looking like? Like how do you deal with that where you're not interacting, besides the other actors, you're not really interacting with a lot of real things?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of kind of collective imagining. I think that's always part of the process in this line of work, but even more so in this context with it's basically an empty room. And then we would add platforms and things. Like, for example, a small platform for me to hop off of and land for the first time you see the second sister. She comes out of her ship and then she jumps off the ship and lands, and then she starts walking. So we set up a small platform so that I could do the jump and land, and then I walked to a corner of the room, turned, and I'm flanked by my purge troopers, and then I walk slowly down the line to where the people from the train are waiting in a line, and then I say to my purge troopers, "Is this all of them?" So we kind of set that up, but did I know that it was gonna be raining in that scene?
Right.
I'm not sure that I knew that. I'm not sure that that was,
Yeah.
like, in my yeah, but Tom Keegan, our performance director, is truly the best of the best, such a gift of a human being, my god, and he was obviously our leader, and then Cameron Monaghan also was very much one of our leaders because he's Cal Kestis, and they both did a really wonderful job of just being in communication about things, really, thinking through things. Everybody cares so much about the quality of the project when you're working on Star Wars. There's nothing we all care more about. Um, so there was a lot of just like, thinking things through and going, well, hold on, wait, well, how does this work? And just getting into the mechanics of it, trying to get all on the same page.
Yeah, I think I wonder a lot of stuff when you're working on something that you know is big. It's kind of that like playing, like you get that kind of great performance out of people because they're like, oh, like we're in the big leagues. Like we need to play now.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how it felt
So
across the board.
yeah. So is this something, let me ask you this. Is this something acting in general? As a kid, were you interested in this, or was this something newer as you started to grow up that you were like, oh, you know what, I want to try this?
Like, to be an actor in general?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do it since I was, like, 7. Um, I just I was I don't know, it's very well, okay, this is my memory of my 7-year-old brain. I Everybody else in class, the teacher was asking us, like, "What did you wanna be?" And the kids were like, "I wanna be a race car driver. I wanna be an astronaut. I wanna be a ballerina." And I was like, "I wanna be a race car driver, an astronaut, and a ballerina. I can't choose." So, I figured if I was an actor, I could be all the things because in each different movie, I would be a whole different person, and I was very attracted to that, the variety and the diversity in that kind of lifestyle. And then also I grew up watching the Oprah Winfrey Show with my mom every single day, and she would have these big actors on the show like Denzel and Julia Roberts, and they'd be promoting a movie, but they'd also be talking about like building wells in Africa or building a school, and I was like, "Whoa, like I can be the center of attention and help people?" Sign me up. I'm in. So that was
So,
my reasoning as a 7-year-old. Here I am.
so was your mom supportive of this? Did she see this in you as a kid, and then when you were like, "Yeah, mom, I'm gonna do this," was she like, "Yeah, do it," or was it more like, "No, you maybe I don't know, maybe you want to try something else"?
Totally supportive, which is very surprising because my family, I'm the first generation American. My whole family comes from a third world country. Nobody knows what it means to be an actor. There's no such thing in the Dominican Republic where my family's from. It's just like, I mean, there is such a thing, but this is a very far out concept to be making a full time living playing make believe. Like what? Like no one in
Yeah.
our family has ever done that. Um,
Right. Most of it's like, "Hey, we're gonna need you to work because we need money." And so and, like, the
Very
only thing you can
clearly.
see yeah, and the only thing you'd see is that is like, my growing up, my dad was in construction, so it was like, "Oh, that's where money comes from is working hard and, like, b building houses and or, roofing or something." And,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's interesting.
It's very interesting because it's a thing that I don't know if you've had to deal with this, Jay, as you've gotten maybe like as you started developing your podcast or But
Hmm.
it's almost like, we have to, like, break through that mental conditioning of thinking that, like, you get money from working hard, and you have to be very hardworking. There's almost like a sense of struggle in order to, like, achieve or earn, and I personally had to do a lot of work and just bring a lot of awareness to my own mind to, like, create new narratives, like, "Oh, no, you can receive money and have a lot of fun, and
Right.
also you can have a lot of ease." Um,
Yeah,
you know?
it's almost, yeah, in those situations, it's almost like, the only way that you're gonna make it is through compromise, so you're never gonna do what you love, you just need to do what you have to do to, like, make this work.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a real paradigm shift to, like, transform that thinking as, in my case, the daughter of immigrants or yeah. But I
Well, and
did, and here I am.
yeah, well, and I think a lot of the most successful people in the world are people who had parents like that, because I think on some level, when you have a hardworking parent who's, laying brick or up on the roof or doing whatever it takes to bring food home for the family,
Yeah.
you build in that kind of resilience into you. So then when you do shift the paradigm and do what you love, that you're also bringing that hardworking attitude with you.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely shapes us in so many ways. I mean, probably many ways we're not even fully aware of, but
Yeah.
I appreciate that sense. My dad would always tell me, "Hard work never killed anybody," which is actually
Yeah,
not true, but
right. Yeah. I'm sure there's some factory workers that would disagree with that.
I appreciate it for what he means by it.
So it's funny. One of the things that we talk a lot about on the podcast is health and being healthy while doing these different, the Star Wars Legion, the game that a lot of our listeners play. Like, we always talk about trying to be healthy doing that, and I think kind of segueing over from having a mindset of hard work and focus and dedication. I know that you do a lot of guided meditation and mindfulness, and how has doing that and learning that and teaching that, how does that help you, not just in your life but with your career as well?
Oh my gosh, it's been totally transformative. Um, I didn't really start working until I started meditating. And I was the same actress. I was always this, I had the training, I was talented, I showed up for the auditions, I worked hard, I really, really wanted it for years. But and I should specify, I started working in LA because I was always doing theater and I was very successful and always doing commercials. But I just couldn't land a TV job, or there wasn't like a sense of like traction happening for a long time. And then I started going to meditation classes at the Den Meditation in West Hollywood. And it was like, oh my God, like this whole world opened up inside of my own self. And there's this one teacher, my dear friend, and he's a mentor now, Chandresh. And I remember sitting in his class, and he does this meditation where you repeat over and over. You're like sitting there and you're breathing, and you repeat in your mind silently, "Who am I? Who am I? Who am I?" for like 20 minutes. And as you do this, the answers to the question start to arise. And every time an answer comes up, you witness it and then you let it go. Like, I'm an actress. I'm a I'm a Dominican American. I'm the daughter of immigrants. So you start to witness like your own stories that you're telling about yourself, like the roles that we have taken on and taken to be so solid. Um, and I remember like the one about me being an actress, like it was just so, I don't know, embedded in my identity. Like I just needed it too much or something. It was like too important to me. And through that meditation, I started to soften it and just let things go a little bit and let things flow and just not hold on so tightly. And I don't know, things just started to shift. I just started working a lot more. And then the other piece was transforming the sense of scarcity, or that it's necessary to work really hard, like we talked about, into a sense of like abundance, that actually things come easy and I'm receiving all the time, and just changing the narrative about it. I started to see big changes in my life. And then the other piece was like the self-compassion. um, my mentor, Heather Preet, an incredible teacher, she's really big on this mindful self-compassion. So it's like, for example, this is a perfect example. I was driving down the road one day and I started to feel some anxiety. Like my heart was kind of pounding, my stomach felt tight, my chest felt tight. Now, previous to practicing meditation, I would not have noticed that. I would have just come home, had a glass of wine, jumped on the phone, scrolled on Instagram. Like I wouldn't have like even really clocked it.
Right.
And a lot of us live this way. We have like this kind of low grade anxiety in the background. Um, But because I had been practicing, I was like, "Oh, wait, something's happening. Okay, hold on, let me check it out." So, I checked in with myself as I was taught to do, like, put one hand on the heart, like, "What's going on? What's happening?" And then this little voice from within me like screamed, "What if I never make it as an actress and I'm a failure and I never get to be like whatever, I don't live my dreams?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that's bouncing around inside of me? Like that thought's in there? That's
Mm.
crazy. No, you're not gonna we're not gonna think that anymore." So I soothed the concern. It was causing this anxiety in the body. And a lot people don't realize this. The body's highly intelligent. So if you're feeling some anxiety, it's not a mistake.
Right. Right.
Um, it, it's
Yeah.
it's on it's a message. My teacher
Yeah.
always says it's a check engine light. There's something you need attention.
Yeah.
So realizing that we slowly stop turning against our bodies, and thinking something's wrong with us, like, "Oh, what's wrong with me? I have so much anxiety," and we start to get more curious, like, "Oh, the check engine light's on. What's going on? What do I need right?"
Right.
And that's
Right. And it may be
the
something you're not even like that's not even at the forefront of your mind. It could like you were just having a normal day and then this thing was bugging you in the back, but until you kind of slowed down and thought about what is it that why am I doing this? And then it was like,
totally,
oh,
you'd be
because
surprised.
yeah.
It could be something from when you were in 2nd grade.
Right.
Like, who knows? And also,
Yeah.
you don't really have to know. That's okay too. Like sometimes you just turn toward yourself and you're not going to get a clear answer, but just your mindful attention, just putting attention, because we need attention. We're all running around needing care and attention. And so we can actually give it to ourselves. And just that attention is like so soothing. Oh my God. And then over time, you start to feel better and you're
Yeah.
more a little bit more present and whatever. It really can boost quality of life like an insane amount in a very short period of time.
And it's interesting, I think the connection here between, what we were talking about with our parents to this is there's almost our generation has come up with these, our boomer parents and then their, golden age World War II parents. And it's always like I always felt whenever I go somewhere, especially in the US, it's you're defined by what you do. Whereas, like, if you go to Canada or Germany or some of these other countries, it's less about what you do. Like when in the US, when someone meets you, they're like, "Hey, what's your name? What do you do?" Like those are the first two questions, and there's this anxiety because no matter what you do, whether it's an actor or podcast or marketing or whatever it is, like you feel some sort of judgment coming, right? Because you're like, oh, I do this, and then you're like, and then they're gonna ask follow up questions, and I don't want to talk about.
We're like, oh, so you're an actress? So have you done anything cool, or what have I
Wait,
seen you in? And it's just like what a boring question,
yeah,
Like really, you're going to ask for my resume? Um, but it's a really important point what you're saying, because it's in a way it's like we've internalized capitalism. We think that that our value, our worth, is based on what we do, what we create, our productivity, or how much money we are able to accumulate in relationship to what we do. And that's the paradigm shift. That's the major, like, if we can break that delusion, which is, it's totally false. It's a delusion. Um and all of a sudden we're like, that, I mean, that's a big thing to break in the mind. Like, cuz then you're set free. You're like, "Oh wait, I have value. I'm a person. I matter because I'm breathing. I exist. I don't have to earn my seat at the table. I was born. I like
Yeah.
it's very liberating and very empowering. And then we continue to do what we were doing. This is totally what happened with me. I was an actress then and I'm an actress now. I'm still doing the same thing. But the energy underneath it, the driving energy, is not seeking to prove myself. So now I'm doing it from a sense of like joy and playfulness. Like, I matter no matter what. Even if I never work again, I still matter. But I really like doing this. This is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, I found, years ago, I was going out and meeting people, and it was always this question, and it wasn't until I realized, like, okay, it doesn't matter what I do. That's not who I am. It's just something I do. That, like, I always felt pressure to be better at it, not because I wanted to be better at it, but because I knew someone was going to ask me about it, and I felt like I needed to be better so that I could tell them what I just did, to, like, I don't know, somehow raise myself in status in their brain.
Sure. Oh my God. And also, I think there's such a thing as healthy competition or healthy striving. Like, we do want to be our best and we want to get better. And there's a way to do all of those things with a sense of like healthfulness, or a sense of like self acceptance underneath it, or even just a sense of awareness. Like, oh, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm posturing, I'm strategizing because I want to, whatever. That the sense of awareness makes it healthier right away. But unfortunately, for many of us, and perhaps even most of us, I'm not sure, um, it can become quite toxic. And it feels like we're really operating from a deficit, like we really need to prove ourselves, and we don't.
Right. Yeah, well, and I'm gonna tie this back into Star Wars. Watch this.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
one of the things I found, especially in a lot of the communities we our listeners are in, and that we deal in with Star Wars, and even the video games and the tabletop games, the board games, and all that, is that sort of status, who you are, like these social, like, clicks that we create because of these things. With Star Wars, it almost washes away, because you go to one of these, and I'm sure, if you've been to any of the conventions or talked to any of the fans, that one day you could have, a young, like, 8-year-old girl who just watched Rey in the new Star Wars, and then the next day you could have, like, a 60-year-old a guy with, a family of 6 who has loved Star Wars since A New Hope came out, and he was there originally,
Right.
and we all kind of coexist in this universe of our love for Star Wars.
Right. Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things about Star. Maybe my favorite thing about it is that it completely dissolves so many of those lines that we perceive separate us or make us quite different. It's so universal. Um, One of the wonderful things that's happened since the game came out is, all these fans have found me on Instagram and messaged me, and they've messaged me from all over the world. Like, I think 30 or 33 countries so far. It's crazy. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This is so cool. And it completely transcends politics or, um, all that boring stuff that we use to like argue with each other.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what was the stats of January this year? They were up to 8 million copies sold of the game,
Yeah, I think
which is
we're projecting. What were we predicting? I think we were hoping for 6 to 8, and we reached
Yeah.
10 million.
Well, and I would guess one of the side effects in a good way of the coronavirus and all of us sheltering in place and quarantining is I'm going to guess that's going to go up,
I,
seeing as we're all home now.
I hope so. It's been such a crazy experience to watch people consume the game, and then yeah, like I said, people are coming and finding me and just letting me know like how hard it was for them to beat the second sister, or how
Right.
many times they almost threw their controller across the room and broke the TV. It's really fun. I agree too. I don't know, the coronavirus thing, like in a weird way, I feel through the technology, I feel like even more connected to like my friends and my family. And I think, at least what my experience, I don't know if other people are experiencing this, but for me, it's like it's bringing out a deeper sense of like care for each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's because I think we're all looking out for each other now for the greater good.
Exactly.
And I think most people are realizing like, okay, this may not be for me, but my older elderly neighbor across the street has some underlying health issues. I don't want to give it to them. So I'm going to just hang out in my house for a while.
Yeah, and it abolishes the idea that we're separate, that we're all different from each
Yeah.
other, because the virus is spread. It's like wildfire. It's literally
Yeah,
a wildfire.
yeah.
spreading throughout
It does not
the earth.
care.
Oh, we're extremely connected and
Yeah.
completely vulnerable. Cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Almost forgot.
Well, and I'm hopeful in the fact like you were just talking about with technology, like, you're in Los Angeles, I'm in New York right now. We're doing this podcast recording, and there's all these amazing technological marvels that I think we take advantage of day to day, that I think we're going to realize how marvelous they are now, right? And how amazing things are that we have currently.
Yeah, I feel that way. I've always had kind of a love-hate relationship with a lot of technology and social media and stuff.
Yep.
I I find it very like in the past, I found it very challenging in terms of like managing my own anxiety or the comparing mind, but now all of a sudden I'm like, this is the best. We're totally
Yeah.
connected and we can chat and send each other videos and FaceTime. And me and my dad yesterday had a FaceTime happy hour, like had a glass of wine together. He's in Florida, I'm in California. It's fun.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I like that. I'm gonna institute that amongst all my friends. All right, happy hour.
It's a great idea. Do it.
So I'm gonna ask. This will be our last question that we'll kind of leave off on.
Okay.
If you can answer it, do you see yourself in any more Star Wars media?
I mean, I close my eyes and see myself in lots of Star Wars media.
Sure. Yeah.
uh,
Every day.
all the time. It's man, it, I'm like stuttering and like losing my words because I'm
Yeah.
so in love with that idea. Um, it would be the greatest gift of ever to be able to revisit the character and to explore more of her story and different. Um, you know, a lot of the fans have asked for more, whether it's like
Mm,
prequel or DLC, or a lot of people are asking for a film or
yeah.
like a series, a live stream series. I think a lot is what people are saying, but I don't know. Star Wars is a big, really big operation, and they are thinking
Mhm.
of things far in advance. And I really, I don't know. But as for me, it would be the greatest honor for me.
Yeah, and I mean, based on everything, when I was telling some of the guys that work for the podcast that you were coming on, like, they are all over the moon about this character, and so I think the fan base in general would be excited to see more
I think it would
from her.
be I think it would be so cool for me as her, to make an appearance in one of the films.
Ooh, I do like that.
I don't know how that would
I mean,
work, but
Yeah, I mean, well, they got that, what's the Obi-Wan show, right? That's gonna be on Disney Plus, apparently, so maybe there's opportunity.
Maybe the sky's the limit these days.
But, yeah, I mean, well, right, there's so many media platforms like video games and streaming and movies and TV. I mean, who knows? It could show up anywhere.
Exactly. We'll see, but I definitely appreciate the question.
So if people wanted to follow you on Instagram, what's the Instagram they could follow you on?
Come follow me. Come say hi. It's my name at Elizabeth A. Grullón. Elizabeth A. Grullon. And I think my avatar photo is. Let me check. This is it something of the second sister. Oh, not really. But anyway, it's all over there.
You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out right away.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been such a delight, in particular in the middle of the coronavirus and being so isolated. It's been wonderful to just have a chat with someone new.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this too. I've been locked down for a few days now, so this was good.
Take care. Happy meditating.
Join us next week for another edition of the Fifth Trooper podcast.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.